Freak nasty priests. A Catholic Church catastrophe. Catholic officials on edge after reports of priests using Grindr. The reports hit the Roman Catholic Church in rapid succession. Analysis of cell phone data attained by a conservative Catholic blog seemed to show priests at multiple levels of the Catholic hierarchy in both the United States and the Vatican using the gay hookup app Grindr. The first report, published last month, led to the resignation of Monsignor Jeffrey Burrow, the former General Secretary of the U.S. Bishops' Conference. The second, posted online days later, made claims about the use of Grindr by unnamed people in unspecified rectories in the Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey. The third, published days after that, claimed that in 2018, at least 32 mobile devices emitted dating app data signals from within areas of the Vatican City that are off limits to tourists. The reports by the blog, The Pillar, have unnerved the leadership of the American Catholic Church and have introduced a potentially powerful new weapon into the culture war between supporters of Pope Francis and his conservative critics. Cell phone data, which many users assume to be unavailable to the general public. When there is reporting out there that claims to expose activity like this in parishes around the country and also on Vatican grounds, that is a 5-alarm fire for the church officials. There is no doubt about it, said John Gehring, the Catholic Program Director at Faith in Public Life, a progressive advocacy group. The report has put church officials in an awkward position. Priests take a vow of celibacy that is in no way flexible, and the downloading or use of dating apps by clergy members is inconsistent with that vow. But officials are also deeply uncomfortable with the use of cell phone data to publicly police priests' behavior. Vatican officials say they met with representatives from the blog in June, but would not publicly respond to its reports. If someone who has made a promise of celibacy or a vow of chastity has a dating app on his or her phone, that is asking for trouble, said Cardinal Joseph W. Tobin of Newark at a Zoom panel organized by Georgetown University. I would also say that I think there are very questionable ethics around the collection of this data of people who allegedly may have broken their promises, he said. The only app explicitly named in the reports has been Grindr, which is used almost exclusively by gay and bisexual men, although the Pillar has made vague references to other apps it says are used by heterosexuals. Only one of the reports directly link an app to a specific person, Beryl. The reports have been criticized by Catholic liberals for trying or tying the general use of Grindr to studies that show minors sometimes use the app as well. That conflation of homosexuality and pedophilia is part of a long-standing effort by Catholic conservatives to blame the church sex abuse crisis on the presence of gay men in the priesthood. The reports have raised a host of questions. How did Pillar obtain this cell phone data? How did it analyze the data, which is commercially available in an anonymous form, to identify individual app users? How widespread is the use of dating apps among Catholic priests? And how much has the Pillar been able to learn about specific individuals? The editors of the Pillar, J.D. Flynn and Ed Condon have refused to answer questions of any sort and did not respond to a request seeking comment for the story. They have also declined interview requests from other news media. In a podcast, Flynn and Condon said their work was motivated by a desire to expose a secretive culture of wrongdoing within the church. Immoral and illicit sexual behavior on the part of clerics who are bound to celibacy, but also on the part of other church leaders, could lead to a broad sense of tolerance for any number of kinds of sexual sins, Flynn said on the podcast. They said Newark was the only American diocese they wrote about because it was once led by former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who was defrocked in 2019 and charged last month with sexually assaulting a child in Massachusetts in 1974. But their decision to investigate the use of the gay dating app in suburban New Jersey instead of a city with a large gay population has raised suspicion that their real goal may have been to undermine Tobin, an ally of Pope Francis. Flynn and Condon's former employee, the conservative Catholic news agency, published a report the day before the first post of The Pillar that said it had been approached in 2018 by a person concerned with reforming the Catholic Church clergy. That person offered them similar cell phone data and also provided specific information about a nationally prominent priest who was not Bereal. The executive editor of the agency, Alejandro Bermudez, said he declined to name that priest. At the time, Flynn and Condon were both editors at the agency, but Bermudez said he did not discuss the offer with them. Bermudez said he thought the data was accurate, but he ultimately declined to accept it because he thought it may have been gathered in a sketchy way. He also said he thought using it to expose the private lives of priests would not be an effective or ethical way to reform the church. The Pillar's reports have been based on what it describes as a very large data set, derived from data signals from multiple smartphone apps that were collected over two 26-week periods, one in 2018 and one in late 2019 and early 2020. Until 2020, Grindr routinely provided user location data to free-wheeling online ad exchanges where it could be harvested by data brokers. In January, Grindr was fined $11.7 million by the Norwegian Data Protection Authority for its history of providing user data, including precise locations, to advertising companies that later shared it with potentially more than 100 other entities. In a statement, Grindr said it was trying to determine how The Pillar had acquired its user data, but it says those efforts were complicated by the writer's vague and incomplete descriptions of their work. What is clear is that this work involved much more than just a small blog, Grindr said in its statement. The complexity and size of the data set makes it likely that the Pillar's source had money and analytical skills, said Ashkan Soltani, a former technology advisor to the White House and the Federal Trade Commission. Cell phone app data is often purchased from data brokers by corporations and political groups who analyze it to determine patterns of behavior. They can also use location filters to find users of a certain app in a certain location, like Grindr users within the compact borders of Vatican City. Some firms specialize in anonymizing cell phone data, and a user's identity can sometimes be determined by following their movements, Saltani said. That may be how the pillar identified Beryl, who the blog said it tracked to his home and office, as well as to gay bars and a bathhouse. This is a cottage industry, and all of this stuff is really available out there, Saltani said. There is a risk for anyone who uses these apps. This could potentially happen to anyone. The reports have set the Catholic Church on edge. Matteo Bruni, a Vatican spokesman, said the Vatican officials, including the powerful Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, met with representatives from the pillar on June 17. But he said the Vatican had decided not to respond to the report and did not say whether it planned to investigate the claims. It is unclear how church officials might punish the use of a cell phone app if the pillar's reports were to be confirmed. In Newark, church officials instructed priests not to speak to journalists. Several who spoke on condition of anonymity expressed dismay at the use of cell phone data to track priests. Even lay leaders were reluctant to discuss the controversy in the record, although not many parishioners appear to be aware of it. The pillar has not said whether it plans to publish more reports using cell phone data, but priests in other dioceses have waited anxiously to see whether it would publish anything about their communities. Father Bob Bonnet, executive director of the Association of U.S. Catholic Priests, said the use of cell phone data to track the movement of Beryl had deepened a sense of vulnerability many priests feel. It can be terribly threatening, he said. It can make all priests uncomfortable and worried. Flynn and Condon are canon lawyers, well known for their work at the Catholic News Agency, which is owned by the right-leaning Eternal World Television Network, and their ties to conservatives in the church. The pillar provided information about its findings to the Archdiocese of Newark after church officials spent several weeks asking for details, said Maria Margiotta, an Archdiocese spokesman. She said church officials were reviewing the findings. It is unacceptable for any member of the clergy to use any app, social media, or website in a way that is inconsistent with church teachings and their own religious vows, she said. We are committed to protecting the faithful, and when we learn of immoral behavior or misconduct, we immediately respond appropriately to address concerns. Well, family, we get to see an insight into the activities of the world's largest religious organization, the Roman Catholic Church, and they are now dealing with another aspect of the sex abuse crisis for which they have been embroiled in for many years, stemming through decades. So not only are they dealing with the international crisis of sexual abuse against children, they are now dealing with a clandestine niche of homosexuality and secrecy within the Diocese of America, extending all the way to the international headquarters of the Roman Catholic Church. So, as we keep our eye on this unfolding matter, we will see how they try to issue damage control as they continue to solicit the funds, the favor, and the religious adherency to their church. So, for all of the members of the Roman Catholic Church, it is something for you to think about. something for you to ponder, and whether or not you will continue to be active in this particular segment of religion. So, family, we shall return again under our critical review of the spiritual eye and ear, so that we may continue to uncover and unveil the activities of the carnal experience. So, as you know, until we are together again, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled.Detroit. Freak Nasty Priests, a Roman Catholic Church catastrophe. Revelations.Unveiled.Detroit.